So here's where we ended up last week. We finished on really recurring revenue and the exercise that I thought was super valuable. Guys were brainstorming around, how could you, bundle up product or services, try to get to something that has a recurring revenue theme to it, which dovetailed a little bit into value driver number 6, which is having a differentiated product or service. So we touched on this one a little bit. So I'm going to go over this one, fairly quickly. So I think we covered it in many respects last week, and then we'll dive into the last 2 of the 8. So Warren Buffett, obviously, he likes buying companies. Of course, he's one of the few people out there who can buy a whole company on a public level because he's got enough money. But he looks for companies that have a protective moat around them, companies where he feels that the thing that they offer, the product, the service, is differentiated enough that it's hard for people to compete against. And I think that that's a clue that we could take for our own businesses and say, my business might not be 100% different. There's other people who do what we do, but how could I take what I do, either bundling services or changing the way that I deliver to make it a real X factor, that when they're dealing with me and my company, it's not like dealing with anybody else. And so new people coming in the market to compete against you can't really compete because it's apples and oranges. That's the whole goal, is to set up the offering in a way that people don't feel like they can go anywhere else and get what you provide. Certainly adds value, right? If it's harder for people to compete against you, that means that you ought to be able to keep on your growth rate. A new buyer will look at that and go, okay, there's a lot of people who do what you do in this world, but the way that you're delivering product and service is totally differentiated. And if you've got a track record of growth and profitability, then clearly the market is speaking to it that, hey, they like what you're doing. So that makes it a lot easier for me as a buyer to look at your business and compare it favorably to the other businesses that I might be considering in addition to yours. Because it's rare that you're going to get somebody who's talking to you and you're the only person they're going to talk to about buying a business. If somebody's in the game of buying a privately held company, I guarantee you they're talking to several different options before they write their check. The other thing that we talked about a little bit last week as well is that the more differentiated your product or service is, the better you could price it. So there are limitations clearly in every market. It's not a never-ending increased price scenario, but I'm sure there's many people on this call who offer a service that is not necessarily the cheapest option in the marketplace. So if we can price things with a little more healthy margins, that is great for cash flow. That's great for cash in the bank. That also is a multiplier effect when it comes to your valuation and multiples. We talked a little bit about this last week too, that if you're going to bundle things up, just make sure that you're not losing sight of the thing that you guys really do well. If we're going to add product or service to it, make sure we're not watering it down. You don't want to become, jack of all trades, master of none. So you still have to be looking through the lens of, is my offer so irresistible that clients will, jump over hoops to get it, and buyers will also want to do the same thing. So a simple way of thinking about it, if there's lots of companies that sell your product or service, obviously you don't have much differentiation there. If it's tough to find another supplier, we just label that as medium because you're not really doing anything proactively. Another supplier could easily, figure out that people want what you've got and come and compete with you. So the right way to do it is nobody does it like we do, even if some of the components are similar. And since we talked about this one at the tail end of the last call, I'll just kind of open this up for anybody's comments on things to do to make you more attractive or less attractive to a buyer, especially if we're all going for that strategic, buyer who wants to pay a premium for our business in the future. Any other takeaways? I know that we had a good conversation about for our guys on the call who own painting companies on some of the different things that they can do. If there's any additional thought on bundling that's happened since last Monday that people want to share an aha with the group.
Not a bundling idea, but a couple of things that I wanted to share. Number one, like I've been studying Buffett for the last 6, 8 months, and somebody just gave me this idea. They said, like, if you want to become incredibly good at business, you study someone who is ridiculously good at business. And Buffett has 70 years of proven track record of being ridiculously good at business.
Yeah.
So there's a book that was published all the way back in 1997 called Buffettology.
Mm.
It was written by, amongst another author, by his former daughter-in-law, who studied under him for a couple of decades. So she like really understood how he made his decisions. It's half of the book is theoretical, half of the book is very technical. So, but like it really like opens up your understanding how the man thinks about what business is worth buying and what business is not. And that some of us will be exiting our own businesses. It's possible that we will be skating toward the next puck, which might be buying another business, right? So might as well understand from the master himself how he thinks about acquisitions. So that's one thought. And also, along with that book, there's a book on Amazon, and it's basically a collection of all of his annual reports, starting in 1965 through 2014.
Oh, wow.
And you will see how those annual shareholder letters are evolving. From like the very beginning, we're in textile business, to like, holy shit, we own billions of dollars of other businesses. It's like the first report is like 2 pages. I think the last report is like 20 something pages. So it was just such an evolution over those decades of how he thinks, how he invests money, and why he invests money this way and not that way. As far as our business goes, not bundling, but one of the thoughts, because we're in the professional service sector, right? One of the thoughts that I about, and Greg, we talked about it with my partner last week, was like, well, how do we differentiate? And one of the ways, as you know, I'm really itching to get into one specific vertical where there's just a ton of competition. And I think that what we should do is we're going to create a sub-brand that's specific for that industry, like we talked, and call it a premium services that are at no risk. So we're going to sell it, and if we do not achieve what it is that we're setting to achieve, you get your money back, which is incredibly rare in the professional service space, right? So, but if we do it and we know that we're just incredibly good at what we do, we should be striking gold like 9 out of 10 times. So,
yeah, that's definitely giving you guys an X factor.
Yeah, nobody does that. Nobody does that. Nobody delivers premium services, and we know that we're a premium service provider because we're better than like 95% of the industry, right? And we could say we're premium, we're charging higher prices because we are incredibly good at what we do. We have a ton of track record, right? And by the way, it's risk-free. If you do not get what you're paying for at the end of the year, you get your money back. Or you get us to work for you until we reach those goals for free, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. And, the idea of you guys just focusing, because right now, your services could apply to almost anybody, and that's tough to teach. That deals with one of the things that's coming up, which is the, owner dependence. It keeps you and your partner, Ivan, involved more in production and sales, because everything's a bit of a custom job. They need your expertise to be part of the conversation. It's harder to break that down into an assembly line to teach somebody else.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that, Sasha. Anybody else have an aha from last Monday when we talked about either product differentiating or bundling up product or service? Okay, then let's move past that one